By the way, okay, for those that are going to hate on my video and leave me nasty comments below, I understand that this color does not look lavender. I had addressed this before. There was a mix-up in our naming, but everybody loved it so much that I just kept it, okay? Hi guys, and welcome back to Skilled. On this episode of Skilled, I'm going to be covering one of my favorite topics ever, which is the cuticle bead. I know so many beginners that struggle with the cuticle bead. I've been there. I know exactly how you guys are feeling. It's like whatever you do, the acrylic is touching the skin. So I'm going to be breaking down 3 critical things that I do to make sure that I never flood my cuticles and that my acrylic application is still crispy, and I promise you it's really not that difficult. For today's demonstration, I've decided we're going to be using my favorite shimmer glitter acrylic powders from Acrylic Pro. These are so fun. These are basically like shimmer acrylics, but they're still cover acrylics, so it's not like you're working with a glitter. So you don't have to technically encapsulate them. You don't necessarily have to worry about like shaving it off, because technically the shimmers in there are pretty small, so you can definitely file them. So it still acts like a cover acrylic powder. I will be pairing them with the EMA liquid monomer from Acrylic Pro. This is our low odor formula, and I feel like it's literally one of my favorite formulas to work with as a independent nail tech who does work from home, because this way I don't piss everybody else off. Next up is my Kolinsky brush. For my Kolinsky brush today, I'm using the size number 12 100% Kolinsky brush from Acrylic Pro. This is my favorite 100% Kolinsky brush. I don't know. It already comes crimped, and I love it because it makes it so much easier for me to work around the cuticles. So my number one biggest tip is that when you guys are working with the cuticle, I want you guys to point your client's fingers downwards. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like and what happens when you don't point it downwards. For this demonstration, we're going to be using Pure Elegance from our Shimmer Glitter Acrylic collection. She is a really pretty, like, shimmery, kind of cool white cover acrylic powder. Look at how pretty that looks. Can you see the little shimmers in there? It may not catch on camera, hopefully it does, but you guys will definitely see it when we apply the acrylic onto the mannequin hand. So I went ahead and applied our first bead off camera, so this way I can go straight into our cuticle application. So for the first nail here, I'm going to show you guys what not to do. I used to do this as well. I used to hold the client's hand basically like parallel to the table, and it was basically because I was just trying to see what I was doing. So I would lean in super close and try to basically see exactly what I was doing. Unfortunately, what this means is that the acrylic is going to fall backwards into that cuticle crevice right there, and that's unfortunately how I used to get flooding. So let me show you guys what that looks like. If you are guilty of this, let me know in the comment section below, because it's not too late for you to fix that little bad habit there. Okay, so I would do this. I would pick up my bead. Everything's going pretty well here, right? And I would go and try to place it as close to the cuticle as I possibly could, and immediately I would flood it. Just like that. So it didn't really matter what I did after, because once the acrylic is flooded, it's already game over. So this is what my acrylic nail application would look like. If you guys don't know why this is so important that you don't flood your client's cuticles, is because as the acrylic dries, your cuticles are live skin, right? So first off is you might cause some contact dermatitis to a client over time if you keep doing this. But secondly is the cuticles are, this area right here, the eponychium, is live skin. And so because it's live skin, it'll actually move, and as it moves and as your nails grow out, it's going to create almost like a little cliff. And that cliff is how hair, fabrics, and everything is going to get caught behind it. And then very quickly, in probably around 3 to 4 days, you'll see lifting. And then, as you all know, what happens with lifting is that nail is not going to last. So as this acrylic starts to dry, we can already start to see the cliff come through. And that cliff is the beginning of flooding. So instead, what should we actually be doing? Let's take our second finger. I promise you I'm not trying to flick you off. It's just the middle finger is usually a little easier to film with because it's right in the center. Okay, and now moving on to our second finger. With the second finger, the biggest difference I'm going to make is instead of doing the client's nail like this, I'm actually going to point their fingers downwards as I go through my application. This is going to allow gravity to almost pull back that bead while I'm pushing it up towards the cuticle again. So, fully submerge our brush into the tapping dish. Light tap into the middle of the brush. I'm going to pick up a medium-sized bead. Flip it around and let it polymerize on the nail for just a little bit. And hold and point the client fingers downwards while we push that acrylic back up and lift. Do we see that? There is no flooding at all. You can now push the acrylic into the client's cuticle crevice, and we can now blend. Blend, blend, blend. Blend that bead back into the original bead. No flooding of the cuticles. I did miss a little bit of spot there, so I'm just going to do a little bit of touch up. I have a new setup, and as you guys can see, I do have a new little phone holder. So unfortunately, my brush keeps running into the phone holder. So it makes it a little bit awkward for me when I'm working with the acrylic, but it's fine. I will live. I will get used to it. Even when you're doing touch-ups, yes, point the client fingers downwards. Much better. There you have it. No flooding of the cuticles. The biggest difference was because I pointed my client's fingers downwards. That allows gravity to pull on that bead for you while you push it back up. And that is how you're going to get the world's most flush cuticles with no flooding into the cuticles. So for this second demonstration, we're going to be using this little like pale pink shimmery color called Lavender Lace. The second tip that I have for every beginner out there that's struggling with their cuticle application is when you're working with your cuticle bead, please do not let it sit on your brush for way too long, and please make sure that you are picking up just a slightly more wetter bead than maybe you're used to. I'm going to show you guys what happens if you pick up an acrylic bead that's a little way too dry or like the normal consistency versus when you're working with a slightly more kind of, I guess, liquidy kind of bead. Okay, so I went ahead and applied my first bead really quickly off camera, and now we're going to go into our cuticle bead. I'm going to first show you guys, as usual on this nail, what not to do, and then we'll do the other nail, which is like what we should be doing. So for this particular nail, I'm going to pick up a medium-sized bead, and I'm going to wait a little bit longer on my brush to let it polymerize. This is what I used to do because I was so nervous with the cuticle bead that I wanted to do everything right, and so I'd wait way too long. And when I went and placed it down, let's go ahead and tilt the client fingers downwards like we just learned, and I would like wait forever. And I would just get so nervous, which, by the way, okay, for those that are going to hate on my video and leave me nasty comments below, I understand that this color does not look lavender. I had addressed this before. There was a mix-up in our naming, but everybody loved it so much that I just kept it, okay? All right, so this is exactly what it would look like. By the time that I got to the actual blending, the bead had stiffened up already so much that it was very difficult for me to blend. Obviously, I can still fix this. You can just go ahead and add touch-up beads to it, but I'm just gonna leave it like that because I do wanna show you guys like what not to do, okay? Let's move into the what to do kind of nail. With this particular application, we're going to also pick up the same size bead, but we're not going to let it polymerize on the brush for that long. We're still gonna let it polymerize just a little bit, but not that long, okay? Same as the other nail, let's go ahead and point the client fingers downwards, and let's focus on getting the top of the bead into the cuticle area, and then we can blend down and blend down and blend. There you go. Now your acrylic application doesn't have a very obvious line. Okay, and now as you guys can see with this particular blend, it's a lot more seamless. And there's no harsh line in the middle. So pretty. Such a beautiful color. By the way, this is Lavender Lace. Now let's move on to our final and last tip. For this last tip here, we're going to use the actual lavender color, which is called Lavender Luxe. It's also a shimmery color. And this is probably one of my favorite colors because I just think it looks so pretty, especially for the fall. I already applied the first bead off of camera, so this way we're gonna jump straight into the cuticle. Same as always, we're going to do the what not to do nail. So I used to do this where I didn't quite understand how to blend out the cuticle bead. So let me show you guys what I mean. I would place it down, and because I didn't quite understand how to blend out the bead, I started always from the middle and I would go like this. And do you guys see how it would just go to two sides? This is the same concept as the apex bead as well, and I would just keep going, and it was horrible. It was honestly horrible because my nails just came out looking so wide at the top. It just was not pretty, honestly. Okay, so do we see how wide that looks at the top, and it's kind of like bumpy and lumpy? We're gonna do this nail. I actually practice as a beginner. I don't do this method anymore now that I have a little bit more control of my brush, but if you don't, you're definitely welcome to give this a try. So you're gonna pick up your bead just like you normally would, flip it around, let it polymerize just a little bit on the brush, tilt the client fingers downwards, and you're gonna work on this like whooping motion. And with that whooping motion, you're gonna get as close into the cuticles as you need to, and then lift off, re-wet the brush, tap it in from the sides, go into the top, push the acrylic to the top, and then blend from one side, and then blend from the other side, and then blend it down into the middle. And I don't know what it was, but it just kind of works for me when I was a beginner trying to kind of figure out the cuticle bead. So you're definitely welcome to give it a try. I don't do this method right now, so I'm not as good as what I used to do, but it kind of works, and you're definitely welcome to give it a try. Okay guys, I hope you guys all enjoyed this particular episode of Skilled and going and diving into these 3 little different cuticle bead tips that I have tried out myself. There's so much more upcoming content that we have planned out for beginner nail tech tips on this channel, so stay tuned, and I will see you all on the next episode.